Hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're kicking off a brand new series with a highly requested foray into South Asian Indian cuisine, starting off with a shot at a classic chicken tikka masala. Unlike the world of Chinese and Taiwanese cuisines that we more typically swim in, South Asian Indian cooking lives less in the world of high-heat flash wok cooking and more commonly in the universe of slow cooking, braising, and low simmering heat. This of course means that our new series will also be accompanied by a relatively new set of cooking techniques and approaches that will look fairly different from the East Asian high-heat wok stir-fries that we have done in the past. More specifically, today we're going to kick this series off with a classic chicken tikka masala, which, similar to a lot of Chinese American cuisine, actually originates from Great Britain and the South Asian Indian community found there. For those who are unfamiliar, a chicken tikka masala most prominently features a diced chicken thigh that has been marinated in a spiced yogurt blend and then roasted and slow cooked in a tomato and cream based sauce. Today we're going to be doing ours with some canned crushed tomato paste, and coconut cream, but I'll also be running through some decent substitutions for those who have difficulty finding some of these ingredients themselves. Finally, as with many of our dishes which feature roasting, smoking, and or open flames in any form, I'll also be employing some wok technique using wok hay to do my very best to emulate those smoky qualities that come from the open flame in my very tiny apartment kitchen, as I'm sure many of you are doing as well. Okay, so let's get into it. Alright, so diving right in, as with many of our umami-driven dishes, I'm starting off with our aromatic fundamentals, which will be our garlic and ginger. Today these are going to appear in both our marinade as well as our braise, so you'll notice that I'm chopping up a double quantity of each here. This is 4 cloves of garlic and 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of finely minced ginger going into my marinade bowl, with another additional 4 cloves of garlic and 1 tablespoon of ginger set aside for our mise en place later on. Moving on to my marinade next, this is a single cup of yogurt going into my bowl, which in my opinion is also the single most iconic part of this entire dish. As always, I'm not a food scientist, so I'm not going to dive too much into this, but essentially, the fermentation of that yogurt is going to act as the acid of our marinade to help tenderize that chicken, while its fatty qualities will also contribute for better browning in our sear as well. You can think of our yogurt here as serving sort of the same role as rice vinegar and sesame oil would in many of our wok fries. For those who are interested, Priya Krishna also wrote a really great article for Taste magazine on the science behind why this works so well, which I'll link in the description and would highly recommend checking out too. Anyway, back to our marinade, I'm assembling a combination of dry spices to accompany my yogurt here as well. This is a single tablespoon each of garam masala and chili powder, followed by a teaspoon of turmeric and a pinch of kosher salt. I'm mixing this all up to combine and setting it aside for a moment while we finish up prepping our veggies. This is about a 1/4 cup of cilantro, which I'm de-stemming with a fork and then rolling into a tight bunch so that we may mince the leaves for our finishing garnish. Last up, rounding out my veggies, is half of a medium white onion, which I'm large dicing with the root end still attached to aid in a nice even chop. Diving into my chicken next, this is 4 medium chicken thighs, which I'm large dicing into 1/2 inch pieces and then adding to my yogurt marinade and setting aside for 30 minutes or up to 1 hour while we head over to the stove. Oh, yeah. Boop. Alright, that's better. Over on the stove now, most traditionally, the chicken in a chicken tikka masala would be roasted over an open flame, either over a literal open flame or more typically using your oven's broiler setting. This essentially unleashes your oven's flame on the top rack of your oven so that you may fire sear things with extremely directional, extremely high heat. This achieves 2 things, the first being that it flash cooks things very well, but also the open flame source is going to give us some nice smoky qualities to our chicken as well. Now, that said, I have personally always struggled with the broiler in my apartment because it's just not a very good broiler, I think, which I'm sure is not an uncommon problem. So I've personally found that the best way that I've ever been able to emulate these smoky qualities is using a wok sear with a decent wok hay, which is essentially wok searing and then lighting the chicken and yogurt fat on fire during the sear. So I've got my wok heated as hot as possible, then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of oil and, as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. Then I'm adding my chicken in flat side down, 1 piece at a time, and leaving undisturbed for 2.5 minutes to develop a nice crisp bottom before we flip and go for that wok hay. Whoops. Let's try that again. 2.5 minute sear, turn, and then I'm carefully tilting the wok to one side, making sure that we don't lose anything out the side. Then I'm using the open flame to ignite our chicken fats like so. Much better. That's right, Wesley, you are an internet chef. Don't skip the flashy bits. In fact, let's see that again. Oh yeah. If that's not a YouTube thumbnail, I don't know what is. Anyway, I'm repeating this with my remaining chicken. This took me 3 batches altogether, and we're diving into our slow cook next. Moving on to my slow cook, I'm cleaning out my wok, reheating as hot as possible, adding 4 more tablespoons of oil and giving 1 more long yao. Then next, I'm starting off by blooming my second half of garlic and ginger for 15 seconds until nice and fragrant, then adding in my tomato paste next. Just like with any bolognese or pasta sauce, our main goal with tomato paste is always going to be to get some good solid contact with the cooking surface in order to cook off the tinny and metallic qualities that come from its canned nature. We're letting this go for about a minute, then I'm clearing some space in my wok to add my dry spices next. This is 2 tablespoons of my garam masala to start, followed by a teaspoon of turmeric and 1 tablespoon each of cumin and chili powder. I'm giving these about 20 seconds on the wok surface to bloom out their aromatic qualities before tossing to combine with my tomato paste. Once that's nice and fragrant, I'm adding in my wet ingredients so that we may begin our slow cook here. This is 14 ounces of crushed canned tomatoes plus about 1.5 cups of water, or in other words, just fill the can up with water. I'm giving this all a quick toss to combine before lowering the fire to a simmering heat, then adding in 1/2 cup each of whole milk and coconut cream. Now, here in Oakland, coconut cream is pretty readily available, but if you can't find coconut cream, I've also found that sour cream is a pretty decent substitution here. Is it the same thing? Of course not. You're obviously going to be missing the coconut qualities of coconut cream, but in a pinch though, I do think that the thickness and texture of that sour cream will get you something fairly close. So as always with any substitution, just exercise these swaps with that knowledge in mind. Finally, I'm rounding out my slow cook here with my onions, followed by my seared chicken, and then letting this go for 30 minutes or pretty much as long as you want, really. Once our slow cook is nice and reduced and ready to eat, I'm seasoning it with some kosher salt to taste, then finishing with our cilantro, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so I'll start off by reiterating that a dish like this falls way outside of my comfort zone, mainly because I have not worked with yogurt as a marinade very much. I'll also mention that I have been tweaking this recipe for a few years now, mainly battling our chicken sear and how to properly navigate that yogurt marinade, which I ultimately solved by using a wok sear instead of my broiler because, as it turns out, I think my broiler is broken. That said though, I do think that this dish came out absolutely fantastic. Our sauce is thick and creamy but not broken thanks to the nice low and slow heat that we cooked over. Then our yogurt marinade has crisped and seared to the chicken for a wonderful crust to it that adds a nice bite despite its low and slow 30-minute cook. Then those bloomed dry spices add a beautifully floral and rich quality to the dish that I think just brings everything to life really nicely. Finally, the last bit that I'll mention is that in the previous, 5 or so iterations of this dish that I did, I personally was constantly running into the issue that the yogurt wasn't properly searing to the chicken in the broiler, so it would ultimately separate in the slow cook and then kind of break apart in the sauce, leaving behind a sort of flaky and separated sauce, which is very unattractive. So for those who are attempting this one, definitely make sure that that chicken is properly seared, or else that yogurt is going to ruin the sauce when combined, and sad, sad times will be had. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a brand new series that we just kicked off that's dedicated to South Asian Indian cuisine, so definitely subscribe and stay tuned for more fun recipes coming soon. For the Bay Area locals, the Woo Can Cook Fried Rice Pop-Up is kicking off a brand new location at Novel Brewing here in Oakland tonight, so come by and say hi if you can. More about that at woocancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice interneters, and I'll see you soon.